Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Culture Know How, a series where we talk to Gen Zs and Millennials about the different cultures we belong to. Our goal is to amplify our diverse voices so that marketers can better understand them. Join us in today's episode where we talk to Sophie, a freshman in high school, about the pros and cons of cancel culture. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Right now we are talking to Sophie Chang. We're super excited to talk to her and to learn a little bit more about her and talking to her about cancel culture. It's a topic that is really big right now. There's a lot of controversy around it. She belongs to the Gen Z generation, so we thought who better to talk about cancel culture than someone who comes from that group and understands it well. So thank you, Sophie, for being here with us.
Sophie.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So first and foremost, I'd love for you to introduce yourself so our viewers can learn more about you.
Well, like you said, I'm Sophie. I'm 14 years old. I'm from Missouri in the United States, and I really like playing tennis, listening to music, especially K-pop, in my free time, and just hanging out with my friends, I guess.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. I know K-pop is super popular right now. Who's your favorite band or celebrity in the K-pop scene?
Definitely Twice. They're not as well known as BTS or Blackpink or any of those other groups, but I just really like their genuinity or something, and their music as well.
That's awesome. That's so fun. Have you been to any other concerts?
I haven't because my parents are pretty strict, but once I turn 18 and I go to college, I really want to go to a concert.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, that's the way it is at first, and then we could do what we want. That's so fun. So I'd love to know what makes you passionate as a Gen Z or as a young person.
I would really just say growing up in this time and age as a young woman of color, I've had to experience a lot of adversity throughout my life, just people making assumptions about me because of my race or my gender, and I've always been motivated by that to try to help bring about social justice and change. And I really just been doing that through a lot of feminist organizations and feminist work. Um, I absolutely love the feminist movement. I've grown up in a household where I've always had a really strong female presence, like my mom and my grandma. And they really just taught me to know my worth and to know that I am no less than anybody else, regardless of my race or my gender.
Right.
That's amazing. I love that. I can definitely relate to you. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this series. Talking about having strong female presence, I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on that and talk about how you said your mom and your grandma have helped you, be a feminist or become a feminist or have those strong values.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm ethnically Chinese, so that's always been a huge part of my upbringing. And back when my grandma was still alive, we would used to go to China and visit her. And my grandma's a doctor. And back then, in that day and age, women in China and the medical profession, it wasn't really something that a lot of people were willing to accept. And she used to tell me stories about her work and everything, and how she jumped through so many obstacles despite having to grow up in a communist regime and having people doubt her abilities. And she really just inspired me to do the same thing and be myself no matter what, as cheesy as that sounds. And as for my mother, so she's an immigrant. She came from China to the U.S. and she had to jump through a lot of hurdles in her life as well. And I think that was just a huge part of my upbringing, just the fact that these things may hold us back, but that doesn't mean that they are impossible to overcome.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And I think that's such, again, I can relate on that so many levels coming from an immigrant background. I'm from born in Mexico City, raised in California. And I think there's so many assumptions and stereotypes, and that's why I think it's so valuable to talk to people that belong to these cultures. And so it's so interesting to have that. It's almost like living in two worlds, having the background of like your grandma and your mom, and then you being here and turning those values into something else. So I guess what would you say is the relation between having, the background of your grandmother and your mother, but how does that play a role into who you are in the US?
I would definitely say that their hard work ethic and self-value really played a role here. Obviously in the US, I am a minority, so that brings up like a lot of assumptions about me before people even try to get to know me.
Right.
And my parents and my mother and my grandmother just always taught me that hard work can disprove anything. You know, people can really get to know you if you show them your value and your worth, and that can be accomplished through just like a really good work ethic and self-worth and self-value.
Wow, I really like that. You saying that hard work can disprove anything, and I too can relate to having strong women figures in my life. I was raised by a single mother and aunts, and I just really appreciate that kind of statement. I kind of relate to it too.
Yeah, same here. Single mother and a very strong older sister, so we can definitely relate like 110%. Um, so I know I touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to know how culture shapes who you are. And again, I know that when we talk about culture, it is often paired with ethnicity, which is something that is huge for, people of immigrant backgrounds. But you mentioned like, that you love to play tennis, you like K-pop. I'd really love to know the different cultures that you belong to and how does that all shape who you are as a person?
Yeah, and I can add, culture doesn't always have to be the culture you were born into. It also can be the culture you kind of self-identify with. Like you said, K-pop, or the idea of feminism.
Right.
So these cultures you take on and they become part of you. But yeah, we'd love to hear your cultures you belong to.
Yeah, so like I said before, I'm a huge fan of K-pop, and I think just like being a part of the K-pop fandom has played such a huge impact on like who I am today. Like a lot of my friends and I met because we had the shared interest of K-pop, and that really just sparked like a lot of friendships for me. I think it also played a huge role in like just figuring out my identity, because for a long time I would have like really like a lot of self-doubt in myself, but after like finding all these different people and like finding my own like family, my own culture in K-pop, it really just like helped me solidify my self-worth and helped me regain my confidence in myself, knowing that I have like the support of all these people, all these friends behind me.
Amazing. So what, I'm so curious. I know there is such a big fandom with K-pop. What is it about, K-pop in particular that just makes you relate? Is it the music? Is it the lyrics? What is it?
I would definitely say it's probably the lyrics because a lot of the artists put like a lot of time and effort and a lot of themselves into the lyrics, and oftentimes they're like a message to their fans to keep on going and to, as I said before, know your self-worth and just believe in yourself. And I think that played like a huge role in bringing up my confidence level. And I think also the uniqueness of K-pop as well. It's something that like it's not something that's found in like all like parts of the world, as evidenced by like it's Korean pop. So I think just like the uniqueness and the fact that I was like part of such like a huge, but also at the same time like really like well knit, like sorry, tightly knit fandom. That was like a really great way for me to find a family and help myself regain myself, like regain my confidence in myself.
Perfect. That's so interesting that you're talking about community. And I know that fandom, that essentially that's what it is, and that's what draws, many of us to fandom movements, community. So I think it's so interesting, and a key point that nowadays, people are looking for community. And I think we forget that, as people, we love being around each other. But I love that you found a community through fandom. And, have you found like-minded individuals who you can relate to? Is that what is attracting you to K-pop?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just like the uniqueness and like the tightly knit fandom is, it's just like so incredible how like so many people like from all different parts of the world can just unite with like a shared interest in Twice or Red Velvet or BTS. I just find that absolutely incredible.
That's awesome.
I love that. You also mentioned that you are a part of tennis culture. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I've played tennis, but it's been like such a long time, and I'm definitely not good at it. So it's so interesting to hear somebody else talk about that.
Yeah, so tennis culture, I would definitely say that's just like being a part of the tennis team at my school and like my local tennis club that I go to. Um, I think you can definitely make like a ton of friends from just like playing the sport. You don't really have to be good at it. It's just like a shared interest, like something that brings people together because it's fun, it's exciting, it's uh cool to watch, like to have like watch parties for like professional games or something like that. I think that's just like really what brings us together is just this like shared interest in tennis, no matter how big or small like that interest is.
Amazing. So are these watch parties happening on is it Twitch or is it somewhere else?
It's mostly just like it's like on TV, I guess. And like we have like parties and people like it's kind of like the Super Bowl in a way, but not like as big.
Okay.
Mostly just like a way for us to like get together and watch tennis together and have a shared interest.
That's so fun. I feel like there's so much community. I'm seeing that pop up over and over again, and a lot of like the interests that you have, which I think are awesome. One of the reasons, like I mentioned, that I wanted for you to be one of the first guests at Culture Know How is the topic of cancel culture, right? So I found you through a post or an article that you put together for Gen Z Her, talking about cancel culture. And um, as we know, with the political climate and everything that's happening, cancel culture is all over the place. It's everywhere. And I think that a lot of marketers and brands are having a hard time understanding, because it's such a new thing that I would say wasn't around when traditional marketing was, but because of digital medium, it's kind of like a new thing.
Right.
So I'd love to learn cancel culture through your perspective. What is cancel culture?
So cancel culture is basically like when people like shun somebody because they've done something that society thinks is like inappropriate or offensive. So like for example, Shane Dawson, he's like a popular YouTuber, right? Or sorry, was a popular YouTuber. I think it was like a few months ago he got canceled. He started receiving like intense backlash from like his entire community, and then I think like a few days or weeks later his entire YouTube channel was gone because YouTube deemed his content like inappropriate or something. But I do know that he got canceled, and although his was like a more extreme case, it just shows like the power that cancel culture can have, and like the people that are suffering from it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I heard about that. I actually didn't know that his channel was taken off.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
So that's super interesting. I've known other YouTubers get canceled too, but I think, like you mentioned, this really shows the extreme. And what I really think is interesting is that I think, I guess from my perspective, is that back in the day, or even still now, a lot of celebrities, influencers, anyone who's in the public eye, they would consider their fans to be really loyal. And I think that maybe they were mistaking that loyalty for something else. They were kind of seeing themselves as untouchable.
Yeah, you told the words right.
Yeah, and so I think that's something that is changing now with cancel culture and everything.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, back in the day or a few years ago, celebrities were really just like they could kind of do whatever they wanted. There wasn't a lot of keeping them in check. But now I think with like the addition of social media, really plays like a huge role in increasing that accountability and making sure that we're like keeping our people in check. That we're not spreading like um hateful beliefs or xenophobia or discrimination or anything like that. And we're definitely just making sure that people are held accountable for their actions, which I think is like a really big issue right now.
Exactly. And like with everything, I think there are definitely positives and negatives to really anything in life. So I love to break down the pros and the cons of cancel culture. So let's start talking about the pros. What do you think are some pros of cancel culture?
Um, like I said before, I definitely think that the holding people accountable thing is really big. It's probably the biggest pro of cancel culture and the best thing that it's done. It's really just given us a way to keep people in check and make sure that, like I said before, we're not spreading hateful things, and we're educating the masses on like what is right and what is wrong. And I definitely think another pro is probably the fact that it's given a voice to a lot of like marginalized people. Oftentimes with like let's see, I think it was CrossFit, the founder. It was during like April, I think, at the height of like the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think he was caught saying something discriminatory towards African Americans, and that definitely like it ruined his career, and it shows that and it's been giving like marginalized people like African Americans to step up and say, no, that's wrong, that was discriminatory, and you need to be held accountable for that. I think that's definitely another big pro of cancel culture as well.
Yeah, and that's so, I mean, I've definitely seen it. And I think, in your perspective, do you think that something that someone says or a brand, do you think that more people of our generation or your generation are leaning more towards canceling, completely writing these brands or public figures off? Or do you think that after what they've said, there's still a chance for a comeback?
Personally, I'm very forgiving. So I think everyone, or at least the majority of people, deserve a second chance. Like for example, Harvey Weinstein. No, I would never give him a second chance
Right.
in my entire life. I think he deserves everything that's gone into him. Like you don't get away with raping that many women and you don't suffer the consequences of it. Like that's not gonna happen. But for other people um like Caroline Flack, for example, she was I think a popular host on Love Island, and I think it was a few years back, or in 2019, I think. She got called out for, I think, abusing her boyfriend, and I think maybe like a few weeks later she killed herself in her apartment. And I think that just shows like one of the cons of cancel culture is that it can have like really bad consequences, really serious consequences on people's mental health. And I think that even though people have made mistakes, it shouldn't go to the point where we're just saying like you're a horrible person and you will never ever change. Like that's not us. Like we're humans. We're constantly changing and evolving. You can't just because of one mistake that a person made, you can just tell them that they don't have a chance in life anymore. Like I think that's just taking it a little too far.
Right. And so I guess the question would be, and I think, the reason why unfortunately a lot of the people are losing their careers or even committing suicide, which is, it's horrible. I think a part of it is because this cancel culture is such a new thing that they lack the necessary steps or guidelines on how to make a comeback, right? They don't know how to make it right. So, what do you think would make it right if someone had, maybe not obviously like we said Harvey Weinstein, that's like a completely different story, but if a public person or a public brand said something wrong or did something wrong, what are like the steps that we want to hear as, for our generation? What would make it easier for them to enter back into our lives?
I think definitely taking accountability for their actions.
Yes.
A lot of times people are too stubborn to admit that they've done something wrong, and that can really exacerbate the consequences of their actions. I think definitely just like taking a step back and saying, yes, that was wrong. It was a mistake, and it won't happen again. And I think also just as a public, acknowledging that they're human and that people will make mistakes. And even though like uh, some mistakes may be like a little bit more extreme than others, I think as a public, we really need to take a step in saying that, look, you're human, you made a mistake. We will give you a second chance, but if it happens again, like
It's canceled.
Right.
It's canceled time. Yeah, no, and I think that's great. I think that maybe what's happening is that they're not taking accountability, and it's, the egos get in the way. And I think it's so important for these public figures and brands to understand that the problem really lies in the lack of accountability. And
Right.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's something that we talk about
Right.
all the time.
We're always saying, you have to own your actions. And, sometimes, like you said very eloquently, we are only human, and we make mistakes. But some mistakes, like you said, aren't, I guess forgivable.
Right.
Right. But owning your mistake and just saying it, that's really what it is.
Exactly. And so I know you've talked about the cons already, but are there any cons that you think are also a part of cancel culture?
I think probably the fact that oftentimes it doesn't really get a lot of stuff done. Like, take J.K. Rowling, for example. I think a few months ago, she said she posted transphobic comments on Twitter, and a lot of people jumped on her and started canceling her for that. But then you just like look at what's happening, and a few weeks later, it's all gone. Like everybody forgot about it. And I think that's a big thing with cancel culture is that oftentimes it fizzles out a lot. And you might have this like really big reaction at the beginning, but as time goes on, you just realize that it's not going to change anything. And if we really want them to own up to their mistakes and take accountability for their actions, you're gonna have to do something a lot bigger than cancel culture, and you're gonna have to be a lot more forgiving as well, because I think a lot of times people see the backlash from cancel culture and they stick to their guns, and it makes them even angrier because they're thinking, oh, all these people are really mad with me, but I didn't do anything wrong. And I think just like acknowledging that cancel culture isn't always the best solution is like a really big step in creating a better society.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I think you have great points. And, you know, I think talking about cancel culture, we're talking about, you know, when people, these public figures or brands have already made a mistake and it's too late. So, you know, we always wonder if there's a way to to prevent it before it even gets to that part. So, do you have any advice for any public figures or brands when speaking about cancel culture, how to prevent in the first place to be canceled? What do you think?
I think definitely just being mindful of their actions and words is really important, because oftentimes cancel culture is maybe like a transphobic comment or a xenophobic comment or just something that was worded badly. I think just being mindful of like what you're saying, like how it's worded, is really important, and that you should always be really vigilant in what you're saying, and like making sure that what you're saying is kind and respectful and you're not being offensive.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, and something that we're always advocating for is sometimes where maybe the problem lies is that they don't hire people that have that type of maybe like empathy when it comes
Right.
to copywriting. You know, their copywriters are not diverse, or they don't belong
To those cultures.
to those cultures. And you know, it's something that for someone maybe like yourself, or for us, if somebody were to write something, you know, we would automatically flag it and say, no, 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 like start over. That's not something you say. But it's so surprising that in this day and age, with so many skilled people, you know, these public figures and brands are still making mistakes. And I think that's also where the problem lies, that
Right.
they don't want to put in the work first to prevent being canceled. And then it gets to the canceled point which is just bad news for them and for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Switching from cancel culture and moving on, what are some brands or people, you know, maybe public figures that you connect with right now that, you know, among all the cancel culture and the political climate and everything, in this time of unrest, is there a brand or a public figure that just makes you feel good in this time that is, you know, it's really crazy right now, that you can connect with and relate with?
Um, I would definitely say Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. She's such an inspiration, especially for young women of color like me who are trying to make like a difference in the world. I think just like her age, her gender, and her race, and the fact that she's like one of the most prominent public figures right now is honestly just incredible. And the fact that she's been able to accomplish so much and create so much change is honestly just amazing. And she inspires me so much.
That's
That's awesome.
awesome. I love that. And so, you know, you mentioned so many things about her. So when you see her, she's very active, obviously, on social media and publicly. When you see her accomplish these things, what do you think that says about you?
I think it definitely gives me hope knowing that somebody like me is doing all this stuff and creating so much change. And it gives me hope that one day I can do the same thing and inspire the same people and create the same change.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I have a question. So could we say that because of the strong women that you've had in your life, like your grandmother and your mother, you know, they've instilled these things into you, and that's why you find AOC very inspiring, or it kind of leads you in those directions.
Yeah, definitely. I think like you said, like the figureheads in my life, the strong women, really played a large role in like defining who I am today and who I look up to and who inspires me. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So when we're talking about, I always have like my brand brain on because that's the people that we primarily work with. Um, so like keeping this in mind, you know, you're obviously very much into community and female public figures because you're a feminist and you have, you know, your grandmother and your mother's values always in the back of your mind. What do you think brands could do to, I guess, win your heart and to show you that they understand you?
I think definitely being like genuine. I think a lot of brands nowadays have that kind of like fake feminism type thing. They have like, oh, girl boss, girl power, but they don't really actually do anything to
Right.
help the feminist movement. I think actually putting those thoughts and ideas to work and actually creating change and um, helping the feminist movement would do a lot of work and like helping drive people like me towards their brands.
That's so interesting. And so I would love to know, you mentioned, and I've heard this before too, and I think I know what you're talking about, but I want to get your perspective on it. So you talk about, you know, how a lot of brands are promoting this fake feminism versus driving actual change. So I'd love an example of what to you seems ingenuine from like a brand when they're, what's fake feminism? And I think this is such a good, answer to hear because I think that a lot of brands are so far removed from people like yourself that they genuinely think they're doing a good job and they don't know a bad example of what is, you know, fake feminism. So can you give us some examples?
I think probably flouting the amount of women in their workforce. A lot of brands are like, oh, we have so and so many women. But what are you really? Okay, I see that you have a large number of women in your workforce, but are they high ranking members of the corporate team? Are they helping to create a better world for feminism? Are they doing these things to actually promote change? Because oftentimes a lot of the corporates will have women as like part of their board members, but they're not really actually promoting feminism. They're just like I said, I've seen like this really funny one. It's just feminism in heels. It's patriarchy in heels. That's basically what it is. And they're not actually like creating change or anything. And I also think like another example of fake feminism is when brands use like or make t-shirts that say like girl boss or feminism or girl power or something like that. Like I like the fact that you're making like nice merch and you're doing stuff like that, but instead of doing that, I'd also really like it if you donated to a feminist movement or you gave support to a feminist like protest or march, stuff like that. I think just like putting your ideas to into like action and doing what you said you would, that would be like huge. And yeah.
Yeah, that's such an awesome answer, and it definitely takes more than merch. And from my perspective, there has been, I think maybe it was like what 5 years ago when, you know, this girl boss feminist movement came into play, and then now again it's you know, I think maybe the younger generation is coming and questioning, okay, but what did that really mean?
Right.
And so a lot of brands that push the feminist movement, like I think the wing has also been under, you know, like scrutiny because of some things that had to do with like their company culture. So I think that's definitely, yeah, I mean, you're right on. Brands need to pay attention to not just forming acts of tokenism with like, the people that they have there or the merchandise that they're selling. Like you're saying, it's going to take more than, putting a nice slogan on a t-shirt and calling it a day. It needs to be more involved than that.
Right.
We already talked about, a lot of like cancel culture and brands and all these different things. And there's obviously a lot to talk about, but what would you want the world to know about you being a young person in America?
I think I would definitely want them to know that I'm determined and I won't give up. Um, a lot of times people are like, oh, it's just the youngness, the age, it'll fizzle out when you're older. But I think a lot of like our generation, like millennials like you, are actually really passionate about social change and creating a better world through social justice and movements and stuff like that. I just want them to know that I will not give up until we have created a better society.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good. That's awesome. I'm like Sophie for president. No, that's awesome. I think those are all the questions that we have for today. It's been really great speaking with you.
Really
Yeah,
good.
you too.
Do you have anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
I wanted to thank you for having me. It was really nice talking with you and having this discussion. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Our pleasure in having you here. Thanks for watching Cubo Creative's episode of Culture Know-How. Please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on social media for updates on new episodes. See you next time.